Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Give you a second here to situate yourselves as we return. We are excited to jump back into our conference here today and hope that you had adequate time to at least prepare some food. We definitely don't mind if you continue to snack while you join us here. All right, before we jump into our Fred Talks presentations for today, I wanted to take a moment to share some of our partners and sponsors for today. Oh, there we go. The image that I was going to use here is being a little funny. Give me just a second. There we go. Let's try that instead. Wonderful. Okay, so a list of our sponsors and partners for today. We are joined, we are supported. This is made possible by Combat Addiction CHQ, the Hope Chautauqua Coalition, ECC BOCES, Prevention Works, the Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau, the Suicide Prevention Alliance of Chautauqua County, the Mental Health Association of Chautauqua County, Tobacco Free CCA, SUNY Fredonia, the Chautauqua County Department of Mental Hygiene, and Chautauqua County Health and Human Services. Without these wonderful organizations, we wouldn't be able to bring you this conference today, so we wanted to take a moment and thank them again for all of their support. A staple of our Hope and Healing Conference, at least as far as I've been able to attend, is the Fred Talk segment, where we have a chance to highlight individuals, organizations, and services in our county. Today's Fred Talk presentations are giving us another look at the therapeutic benefits of art as we take the opportunity to learn from community members and professionals on how to use arts and creativity as a way to cope and heal. I'm very excited and honored to be able to introduce some of our presenters today. I will be kicking us off with Pat Martonis of Cornell Cooperative Extension. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good, good. All right, the floor is yours.
I've been looking at my hand, as Trish said too. So I've been looking at my hand in the pictures.
All right, well, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm from Chautauqua County Cooperative Extension. I'm a master gardener and have been since 2013. When I was looking at these pictures, I felt that part of my healing with anxiety and other things has been my garden. And it is my artistic expression, how I put colors together, how I do scents, how I do textures. What I'm here to talk about today is our Seed to Supper program. We just started it this past month, I should say. Seed to Supper is it's a gardening program for beginning gardeners with a stress on nutrition. So we start out with just 5 to 6 basic core subjects. And we do planning your garden. We do seed starting. We do healthy soils. We do planning and then putting in your garden and how to take care of it. We started with approximately 12 people. We completed with 8, and they were all from a rural side, which surprised me, being the fact that we were at Jamestown Community College. The emphasis on the program is diversity, encouragement of new gardening skills, and acquiring the confidence to share new skills. And hopefully our long-range goal is that we will be training community members to do their own Seed to Supper program, and we would act as mentors or possibly give a presentation. That's our long-range goal. The first thing that I have to say is gardening is a participation activity. And the hardest thing for me with Zoom is that there was not any actual physical participation. The great thing about this program is that we were able to finally do some active participation. So each presentation we did and each session had something that they could either take home or do. First one was we talked about how to do seeds. They took the seed packets home. The second one, we were talking about healthy soils. They took a microgreen home that they planted. We planted in our demo garden. The master gardeners have a demo garden at JCC, and they do evening in the gardens the third week of the Wednesdays. And we put an actual plot in a small one, and everybody got a chance to do that. Our last one was last night, and we did container gardens, and they got to take, not only did they do one for container garden, they got to take more plants home of their choice. I found it a mutual learning experience because their questions would pique our interest and look at what we're doing and why we're doing it. So to me, it's a great learning process for both the presenters and the people who are attending. I would say that the reason we started this program, or Cornell, is how poorly covered our counties are in New York State as far as nutritional needs and growing and the amount of food deserts we have. This program is designed so what may work in Orange County, we don't have to do in Chautauqua County. And that is the beauty of it. We don't have to have a set guideline. So if one community says to us, gee, we need more Spanish speaking facilitators, this program is actually has a whole completing Spanish curriculum. Excuse me. At the end of the program, each person gets what I call the Seed to Supper manual. And this is helpful because not everybody has internet access. We find that a lot with our Zoom presentations and in our classes, that not everyone has ability to do that. So they get to take that home, and it's their reference. And of course, they can always come back to our various activities or even call us to get any more information. I think I've covered a lot of it. I will tell you one thing, that the reason I think that gardening is so healthy for both the mind and the body is that not only with the vegetable gardening are they trying to learn to eat more helpful. And we had the SNAP educator come in, and every session she showed a simple dish that they could make that contained things that could be grown in Jamestown, in that area, or the rural areas, and that they could take home and try. Their favorite was a wheat pasta with spinach. And then the 4-H educator came in, she showed her worm composting bin, which made everybody really happy that lived in the apartments because they have limited land use. So we were able to tailor that to the group that we actually had. I'm trying to think if there's anything I've left out, but I have had a large garden for a long time, a vegetable garden, and then we had to eliminate it due to arthritis concerns and other things like that. And I would say Bambi contributed to it. The idea of community gardens and plots in other places, raised beds and all those things assist everyone to be able to continue gardening. It may have some kind of limitations. I'm going to lose my voice. Gardening has not helped my allergies today. I don't know if I should just ask if there's any questions or let it go to the next speaker.
Okay, fantastic. I appreciate that. I think one of the things that I'm going to end up saying a lot during our Fred Talks presentation today is, oh, that's really cool. I would love to try that as somebody who loves to jump into a bunch of different things. And I think it's fantastic that a lot of the opportunities that are there are tailored to meet the diverse needs of our community, but are also tailored to the location of the community as well. Things that we can do right here in Jamestown or right here in Chautauqua County. So that is fantastic. I'm not seeing any questions in our chat box or in our Q&A box. But if you do want to stick around, if something does come up, you will have the option to respond to some of those things over our text chat as well. And we would encourage folks in the chat, our participants today, to keep those questions coming if there's anything that you want to know more about. So thank you, Pat. All right, next I will be virtually introducing Misty Pennington, the Interim Director for the Chautauqua County Department of Mental Hygiene, who will be talking to us about equine-assisted therapy.
Hello, thank you for joining me today for my Fred Talk about equine-assisted therapy and animal-assisted therapy. This is a topic that I hold near and dear to my heart. Animals have always been a huge part of my life and something that I'm sure will continue to be a huge part of my life going forward. I can tell you from firsthand experience just how powerful relationships with horses and other animals can be. And I think just experiencing that firsthand has really compelled me to utilize this in my personal life and in my career. From a young age, I had horses and other animals, including cats and dogs and some various farm animals. And I can tell you just how helpful having those animals in my life was to me during some difficult times. All of us have ups and downs in life. And whenever we can have supports or activities that help us to deal with those stresses and ups and downs, I think that's very helpful. So I just wanted to share a little bit with you about kind of what therapeutic horseback riding is, equine assisted therapy, animal assisted therapy, anything that would fall into that category. Another experience that I was fortunate enough to have in my life was developing and running my own therapeutic horseback program. And that program was primarily for at-risk youth who were in a residential treatment facility. The program was very unique in the sense that it was not anything that had been done at that facility before. So I had the creative liberties to design it and run it the way that I thought it should be run. It started out, quite small with just a handful of teenagers, and then it grew to a fairly large number of teenagers. And the great thing about that program is it didn't have to do with just riding the horses. Part of animal assisted therapy is just about being around the animals and learning how to interact with them. Animals can teach us so many things: how to communicate, what kind of body language we're putting out there, all of those nonverbal cues that sometimes we're not aware of. Horses in particular are like mirrors, and they will reflect back what we're feeling and how we're behaving because they will react to that. They're very sensitive animals, and they will respond accordingly. So being part of a program like that really enables people to become more aware of what emotions they're putting out, what kind of vibe, as they see how the animal responds to that communication. So it can be really helpful for people who have difficulty verbally communicating with others or expressing their emotions. They will learn about trust, which is huge, and empathy for others. The simple day-to-day structural care that horses and other animals require can be very effective in teaching empathy, in teaching routine and structure and responsibility. Also, building relationships and learning to trust. A lot of times individuals have experienced some type of trauma in their lives, and that makes it very difficult for them to trust anyone. So being around these horses and forming that relationship, that bond, that trust, helps them to be able to transfer those skills into their personal relationships at home. A personal story I can share from my program was I had a young lady from Erie County, New York, and she was a very anxious young lady. She had trouble trusting, and she had difficulty with respecting authority and rules. So after meeting with her a few times, I thought she might be appropriate for the therapeutic horseback riding program. And I can tell you it was quite a transformation on her part from her first day in the program to her last day in the program. Her very first day is something I'll never forget. She was all excited to come to the stable. We get there, and all of a sudden, her anxiety kicked in, and she wasn't even able to enter the barn. So for the very first day in the program, she stayed out in the yard in front of the barn and just met with her therapist and talked a little bit about the emotions she was experiencing. Fast forward to a few lessons later, and she was able to enter the barn and actually come in and stand outside the stall and talk to the horses. And then that transformed into her being able to groom the horses and then lead the horses and assist with their care. And by the end of the program, this young lady was actually riding the horse independently on her own. There was one horse in particular that she formed a very strong attachment and relationship to. And that was a horse that she would go in the stall with often on her own to talk to about past traumas that she experienced. She wasn't always able to talk about those traumas with another human being, even her therapist, but she felt comfortable and safe going into the stall and sharing her secrets and feelings with the horse. And after the sessions at the barn, we would always kind of process through and talk about how she was feeling afterwards. And it was amazing to hear the amount of relief that she experienced after she was done with her therapy sessions with her horse. And it doesn't have to necessarily just be a structured therapy program. Emotional support animals can be very helpful as well. So those are just some examples of all of the wonderful impacts that animals can make on our lives.
If you would like to learn more information about these services, please check out the hopeandhealingconference.com website. Thank you and have a great day.
All right. That is another one that, again, really piques my curiosity, but actually some memories as well. I know that some coworkers and I had the opportunity to check out a similar program in our county just 10 minutes down the street from us. And we were even able to see over the course of maybe an hour and a half, the effects that our emotions and the things that we were projecting, the effects that those feelings had on the animals that we were able to go and interact with. Definitely a powerful experience, even for the brief amount of time that we could spend doing it. So definitely check out the Hope and Healing Conference website if you are interested, want to learn more about that resource. All right. Our next presenter in our Fred Talks session today is Jay Fazo, a community member who will be talking about rapping and poetry, which I, as an English major lover of words, I'm very excited to hear about. So welcome, Jay. The floor is yours. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. And so my name is Jalen, and I go by Jay Fazo. I'm going to read, I wrote down on 5 papers, a little story, because if I just was talking, I'd probably go on forever. But this is my story about my childhood and my life and what I used and did to overcome struggles with addiction and family problems. All right, so my name is Jay Fazo, and I'm an independent artist from Western New York. I've always had a love for music ever since I was a kid, but I started treating it as a career about 1.5 years ago. Since then, I've managed to get my song Knowledge on the radio. I've been featured on Elevator Magazine and Hip Hop Weekly and averaged 27,000 streams on Spotify in my first year. The best part of the music industry that I've experienced so far would be the opportunity to travel and work with other artists, engineers, and videographers. As a kid, and even still to this day, I would use music as a way to cope, vent, and express how I'm feeling. I grew up in a split family with a mom and dad that weren't ready to be parents. Around the age of 7, I was living in Florida with my mom, and she got a divorce from my stepdad. She drove us back to NY and gave my dad full custody. Around that same time, my dad was getting into pills. He quickly became overwhelmed with the responsibility and gave us to my grandma. I would still see him all the time. I just never understood why I couldn't live with a parent because I was so young. When I turned 12, I wanted to live with a parent, so I went to live with my dad and grandpa for a year, which put me in the middle of his addiction. As I got older, the missing pieces of the puzzle started fitting together. My dad started doing heroin when I was 12, but I still didn't understand what was going on with him. What I did notice was all the fun stuff as a child was slowly fading away. He sold my dirt bike my four-wheelers, my regular bike, electronics, TVs, and etc. I noticed all of the spoons were black on the bottom instead of silver. I noticed mood swings and acts of violence to the ones he loved. I slowly started to notice that my childhood was turning into me becoming the caregiver. I remember so many times of almost going off the road, times we actually went off the road, and times I had to drive us home as a 13-year-old because he was too high to drive. There's so many more stories that I could go on forever, which is why I wrote this down. When I left his house, I went back to my grandma's, and that's around the same time I started smoking weed. I was such an angry child because I had so many questions, and at the time, I had no answers. It wasn't long after that I started to sell weed to be able to afford to smoke it. My grandma didn't know what to do with me because I wouldn't listen. When I was 15, I got arrested for the first time with an ounce of weed in a scale. My grandma sent me to live with my mom in Florida as punishment, but that didn't last too long. 6 months after being there, I convinced them to send me home, and when I think about it now, I wish I would have gave it more of a chance. But I was so angry and stubborn with my mom for leaving in the first place that my mind was set, not knowing that what I was about to come home to would be 10 times worse than what already happened. I dropped out of school when I was 15 and moved out of my grandma's because I had CPS and police looking for me. I continued to live the life of using and selling until I was 18. At the age of 17, my house was raided for guns and drugs and I was arrested. I was placed on probation and was still using and selling for a few months until I found out I was going to be a father. I knew what it was like to grow up without one and to grow up around addiction, so I couldn't do that to my daughter. I stopped everything and made it my mission to finish probation without violating and going back to jail. I even started going to college in 2018. My daughter was born a few weeks after I turned 19, and she became my reason to live and want better for us. I had a lot more free time now because I'd be at home with the baby, so I used that time to make music, telling stories about what I went through. On the last day of 2019, I released my first song called Chilling, and that's what started my music career. Ever since I stopped using drugs, I've realized more potential in myself. The music industry is one of the hardest fields to be successful in because there's no blueprint. You can't just apply for a job if you're trying to be an aspiring artist. You have to create one. I've heard countless times that I would never be something in the music industry, and every day I get to prove to the disbelievers that it is possible. It took a lot of learning, practice, and business management to get where I am, and I know that I can go further. Don't let someone or something like drugs stop you from chasing your dreams. We can do whatever we put our minds to. Right now, my song Knowledge is still in competition to be played on the radio on WBLK 93.7, which is in Buffalo. If you'd like to vote for me, the link will be sent out to you. And be sure to check out my music and videos on YouTube, and I can also post that link in the chat. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. We were provided a brief clip of one of your songs to share. We'll go ahead and share about a minute of that, and would encourage our participants to definitely go and check you out on those platforms that you mentioned.
I think it's funny people hating from a distance. I know that they just mad because they're losing and I'm winning. I could say a corny line like to the money I be getting, but the proof is in the pudding and that's what makes me different. Mommy never held my hand through life, so there's a difference between me and you, like a Shaq and Jordan shoe. I don't ever compete, but if I did then you would lose, like a dude that's on Xanax that can't seem to find his boots. What I'm spitting is the truth, I got a lot to let loose, but I've seen so many things that I can't dare to tell you. I grew up a different way, I'd rather hide away the pain. Shit ain't been the same since the day my life changed. I was on a bad path, but I found a new way. I got no time to play, I got a lot up on my brain. I used to smoke every day, like Snoop and LL Cool J, but that's the least of my problems that I used to face, yeah. Every day, life can get hard. You'll get through it, just believe in who you are.
All right. Thank you so much again, Jay. And just one more time, would you mind plugging your platforms so we know where we can check out more of your work?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We'll see if we can get some links in our chat for some of that as well. All right. The next person that I am inviting for our Fred Talks discussion, Daniel Grambo, the Managing Director for the Chautauqua Opera Company at Chautauqua Institution. Welcome, Daniel. We are happy to have you. The floor is yours.
Hey, everybody. That was a great talk. I just really enjoyed hearing all of that. Like you said, my name is Dan Grambo. I'm the Managing Director for the Chautauqua Opera Company. And basically, you know, I was invited to this and very, very excited to participate and just talk a little bit about my work and my research kind of with creativity. So I have just a quick presentation I'm going to share here. Great. So when I was coming through my training, I've always kind of been a fan of opera. And I think that the biggest thing about opera that people usually think about is something that's a little bit more old and dated. So I thought I'd put an old and dated quote up here for everybody to see. So as a fan of opera, I studied Richard Wagner, a very, very famous composer from Germany. And he said, "I'm convinced that there are universal currents of divine thought vibrating through the ether everywhere, and that anyone who can feel these vibrations is inspired." And it's funny, this is one of the few quotes that he doesn't use exclamation points everywhere because he was a very passionate artist. But basically, I thought when I took this job as managing director that I'd be producing operas in places like this. So it's basically the gigantic Bregenz Opera House, which is where Wagner did all of his work. But instead, in 2020, I ended up producing opera in a place like this. So because of the pandemic, from June to August of 2020, I was in charge of editing content, testing remote streaming setups, and doing live streaming for 3 live shows at the same time from a home workstation. The shows would feature famous sopranos such as Susan Graham, Renee Fleming, and world-renowned dance company Pilobolus. And I got to work one-on-one with up-and-coming opera stars such as Chastity Lachey and Jared Esguerra. From my upstairs bedroom, we produced over 100 pieces of digital content featuring nearly 40 artists from across the country, all produced with iPhones, spotty Wi-Fi, and hopefully not too many technical difficulties. And this led to a new work that was premiered at the CHQ Assembly entitled In Our Silence. Basically told the stories of each artist and their journey through the pandemic. And it kind of was a representation of the work from composer Francis Pollock and librettist Jerry Dye, who we brought in to work with each artist to tell their story through an original piece. And actually, when I was going through all this work, it really reminded me of the master's thesis I wrote back in 2018 at Northwestern University, which basically was the concept of the casual creative. Pretty simple premise. The casualization of work, if it's combined with digital disruption in the arts, will lead to a large rise of casual creatives. And everyone's probably asking themselves, what's a casual creative? What does that even mean? So I took it out of these basically these 2 books, the Rise of the Creative Class by Richard Florida, and then David Brooks's Bobos in Paradise. And it's this concept that casualization in work will make people want to pursue more creative work over time instead of manual labor. That basically culminates in a variety of different thoughts. I mean, Richard Florida describes the phenomenon as the big morph, moving back and forth between standardization and differentiation of work for the working class and the creative class. And Florida predicted that the creative class will basically shift from survival to self-expression values. And these values were really, really important in the 60s and 70s when we were celebrating our creative ideas over industry. And it actually probably has created opportunities for passion to outweigh profit and for you to be more connected to your emotions over time, where you can be a producer and less of a consumer and potentially become a professional hobbyist in some ways. David Brooks, who everyone knows out here in Chautauqua from him speaking out here, led to this term called the arrival of the Bobos, which are bourgeois bohemians that range from yuppie businessmen all the way to entrepreneurial artists like myself. And I really found this very, very fascinating because as you kind of go through this work, you start noticing it everywhere. Florida said that the creative class values individuality, meritocracy, diversity, and openness. And the examples you can see right in front of you. You can see basically paint and sip art classes where people, will learn how to paint something with everybody else. Dad rock bands where, anybody can kind of cover a song and perform outside. Also drum circles are huge and karaoke circles are huge as the creative class continues to create. My favorite example of a casual creative actually is George W. Bush's painting career. Portraits of Courage was basically a bestseller in stores after he left office. And he basically painted all these different world leaders and veterans and a lot of different people after leaving office, showing the transition from a former president into the creative sector, which I thought was fascinating. And I'm sure that many of you are very, very much aware that, the creative sector does seem prone to risk, but also is the home of many, many starving artists. On the opposite side of that, it also pours billions of dollars into our current economy and hires the large percentage of workers in our country every year, many of which were disrupted by the pandemic. This casualization of work, like the project by project work, remote work, clearly has been present this past year. And we can actually track that trend even further back to the turn of the 20th century, when creative and service sector jobs have significantly risen, according to the Department of Labor, and agriculture and the working class jobs are in dramatic decline, as you can see in this chart. Prior to 2020, we could see people transition between jobs every 2 to 3 years. And recently we've seen a huge increase in cultural participation in a way we've never seen before. My previous professor at Northwestern, Jennifer Novak Leonard, led a study in California called The Cultural Lives of Californians. And they redefined how to actually collect data about the arts. Instead of having it be where you choose what kind of, if you like dance, if you like music, if you like film, you could fill in the blank with the thing that you were most passionate about participating in. And what they found was a large percentage of Californians have really, really varied interests. The types of dance that people discovered, and the emergence of a shift between art going, meaning going to see things, and art making, meaning I'm creating something for myself. This trend is extremely challenging for people that are producers, because there's a concept in the entertainment industry that says nobody knows. Nobody knows how successful something will be until it actually drops. So it's a big risk whenever you go into those markets. Being from Chicago, before I moved out here, I did a lot of research in cultural participation out there. And one of the best things that I found when I was there was a really interesting divide between traditional institutions and DIY culture. And as you can see in these two different charts, on the left, you see Chicago's 77 neighborhoods and how they are tracking cultural participation for the Joffrey Ballet, the Art Institute of Chicago, and several other cultural institutions that are considered the large cultural institutions. And on the right, at the same year, you can see the collection of attendees and participants that they tracked for block parties across every one of the 77 neighborhoods. Not only can you see a divide here by the economic privilege that exists in where the cultural scene is participating, but you can clearly see that there is a huge need for new sorts of production and art making instead of going for a lot of different people in the city. In Chautauqua this summer, we are actually going to be featuring another casual creative in a huge way. Derek Wang, who's the composer and librettist for Scalia Ginsburg, wrote the piece that will be premiering this season. And Derek was a law student when he was studying the texts of Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And through that study, he actually created the libretto for a piece that eventually became a huge hit called Scalia Ginsburg, and really just launched a huge career in the arts for him. So I think that there's an element of this casual creativeness that comes out of many different fields in many different ways, and you never know where you're going to find great talent. And shameless plug, please come to Scalia Ginsburg at Chautauqua Institution. Here's the dates: July 9th, 16th, 23rd, 30th, and August 6th. Performances at 4 p.m. and I will be there for all of them and would love to welcome you all into that space. All outdoors, very COVID friendly. What happens next, though? Through all this kind of research and everything else that we've seen, with the casual creative and everything that I've been tracking, we're noticing that people wanting to participate and create is in a variety of ways, whether it's, creating through therapy or treatment, through like mental health treatment for addiction, or just general sort of beautification of spaces that people are living in. A lot of this has actually come to fruition through creative placemaking. The concept of creative placemaking is not new, and there are some challenges that exist within that field. But one of the success stories that actually is very, very prominent in the country right now is the one of Mass MoCA. So in Massachusetts, there is a factory district in an area where they're producing at this factory and warehouse space where they completely rethought the entire space for a contemporary art museum. By redefining the space, they transformed that industrial area into a completely new creative sector with all new economy and funding basically an entire town for activity. And that sort of creative placemaking is the innovation that I think comes from the casual creative, someone that finds opportunities in spaces that don't exist and go out and make art instead of just expect to attend. Attending art, of course, I think is one of the most important things that you can do. Because it's great and it's fulfilling, and there's so many things that are valuable for that experience. But being participatory, I think, is the future for where we're going. And I'm excited to see where every one of you decide to create in the future. So if you guys ever want to talk more about casual creative or any of those sort of concepts, I do have a blog on my website, www.danielgrambo.me, or you can email me directly at Chautauqua at dgrambo@chq.org. And that is my presentation.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. Really appreciate that. And I'm going to, I don't know if you have a link specific to the, some of the shows that you were plugging there, the ones that were coming up soon in July, that we could post either in our chat or on our resources page. But would say that attending art when we can, especially in our local scene, and supporting those local creatives is super important, and gives other people the opportunity to do that creating if maybe we're not so confident in doing it ourselves. It's certainly fantastic, and I appreciate you bringing that to our conference today.
Absolutely.
All right, the next group that I have the pleasure of introducing, some volunteers from the Mental Health Association. Carrie and Rose will be joining us digitally to showcase quilting.
Hi, I'm Roseanne Crocker. And I'm Carrie Clark, and we're both volunteers at the Mental Health Association in Jamestown, New York. And we run a Knitting for Wellbeing group. We first came into contact through UPMC in Jamestown, and they had volunteers coming in to show people how to knit. And I learned when I was about 10 years old from my mom, but I didn't pick it up again until I went back into treatment. And I've been crocheting since I was about 8 years old. My grandma taught me, and I always thought it would be fun to knit, and I saw other people in the groups knitting, and decided to attend the knitting group when they came to the 28-day.
It brought it back into my life, and in a way it was sort of a healthy distraction from the problems that I had that I couldn't really necessarily solve. And it was fun to do. It was fun to knit again and make, things for other people as presents or something for myself, and it was just fun.
And I liked that it was something that allowed me to use my creativity and have something to really show for it, because when I was actively using, I really set aside a lot of my hobbies and interests.
I never thought that we would be this far in our recovery and in our life, and it was really exciting when Stephen Cobb, the director here, asked us if we were interested in running a knitting group, and we said yes, and took on the challenge. And it's a lot of fun teaching people how to knit that want to know, and it's a new experience.
Yeah, it's very rewarding when you're able to successfully share your skill with someone else. It gives me a boost of self-confidence to be running the group, and I feel like I'm setting a good example and being a role model for other people that are seeking recovery.
definitely. It really is rewarding, and it's fun to see people pick up the knitting needles or the crochet hook and give it a shot and find comfort in that. It helps stay sober, keeping busy with all sorts of arts and crafts like that. I think that it doesn't have to be, stigmatized as, just an old lady thing or a woman thing, because guys come in and they learn how to knit too, and they really enjoy it. It doesn't have to be like one gender or another, a lot of people, anybody can take comfort in, that kind of skill, learning it.
Yeah, knitting really is for everyone, not just old ladies in rocking chairs.
Right.
Hey, Alex, you're muted. Sorry.
I appreciate you letting me know that. I sat on my the dongle there on my microphone. Yeah, I was just saying I think that hobbies like these are fantastic, and I can second that it's not just for old ladies. Making things, knitting and cross stitching is something that I started doing in 5th grade, and really love, not just for the fact that it keeps my own hands busy or gives me something to do, something that I can show and share with other people, but also fostering relationships and asking people for advice or showing them these types of things or inviting them to a group like this as well. So again, make use of these resources that we have here in our community. We can't encourage you enough to join in and pick up a new skill and maybe make some new friends. The next person that I will be introducing, also joining us digitally, Shane Hawkins, the Executive Director at Infinity Visual, sharing some opportunities from Infinity Visual and Performing Arts.
$525,600 minutes, 525,000 moments so dear, 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year?
Good job. Nice, ladies.
G, F sharp, F sharp.
Very good, guys. Nice toes. Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, I like that. Definitely.
There it is. Nice job.
Switch. Switch. More girl.
Thank you. You guys, give yourselves a round of applause. That was like honestly the best that you guys have ever done it. What happened? You were concentrating, your energy was high, right? You were having fun with it.
So if it's helpful, you could just draw it by shading it. So like you can start just by making some value on there with your pencil, just kind of lightly shaded.
Because I
All right, another fantastic showcase of opportunities available in our county. Things that have gotten me thinking for sure as I think of all the hobbies and things that I've set aside that I told myself I would do once it started to open up after the pandemic. And no, my own brain is already in gear.
Give Big CHQ is happening today. And so we were raising money. We reached our goal. We were attempting to get 315,000. We reached that, but because of COVID, we needed to raise a little bit more. So we are trying to do that today through Give Big CHQ. But we're excited about it, and the artists are really excited about it. There's a huge shift, you know, when I get to know some of the artists that come in here, whatever their diagnoses may be, they definitely leave here after a while, taking the classes with a lot of confidence. They feel like a pride almost from what they're doing, and they love to share it with the community. And I think that's a big, huge part of it too, is that it's not just, you know, the people in the class or themselves that feel, you know, confidence and pride with what they're doing. It's contagious. You know, everybody around them kind of feels that, and they go to the art shows, they share their artwork, and there's an excitement. So I feel like the well-being from just creating any kind of art, whether it be a bracelet or, you know, dyeing some silk or making a painting or ceramics, any of those things, there's such a pride that comes along with it, and an accomplishment. And I think it does a lot for a person's just their day-to-day, how they are, you know, how they hold themselves, how they feel, the choices they make. They build friendships here, and they learn a lot from each other. So I think that's a huge part. So this big endeavor that we have to open this Edgewater Art House, I feel like it's going to definitely benefit so many people, not only just the artists who can participate, but the community itself. They'll be able to see, you know, what we're doing as we, you know, have the shows in the community and see what they're capable of, and share in their excitement with it. So we're hoping this Edgewater Art House will open soon. We've been working really hard on it, and it's definitely it's been a lot of work, but I have to, you know, say thank you to the community, because they've obviously, you know, helped a lot as well, and to the staff here at the Resource Center, because they do a lot behind the scenes, but also along with the, you know, I think that the artists, they almost need the art program. I think they need like an outlet. There's many of them that, you know, that is their mode of communication. They may not be able to speak, or they may use, you know, sign language or something else, but this is a way for them also to communicate a feeling that they have, or an emotion, whether it be sad or happy, either one, like they're expressing themselves in that artwork. And I think just being able to do that, and the artists having that ability to do that and the opportunity, they're given the means to do that, whichever way they want, whether it be clay or drawing or, you know, paint, they have that opportunity, and they can make that choice, and they can express themselves however they want, whichever way they want to. I think that in itself is a huge thing for anybody that participates in the Resource Center, that this is available to them. So I'm excited about the new art house, and I'm grateful for the community that I'm in, and grateful for the community around us that has really helped out the whole time. So if there's any questions?
All right. I know that we have been keeping an eye out for questions for any of our Fred Talk presenters to address them sort of en masse at the end. So again, we would encourage folks to keep sending those questions in to our question and answer box, so we can collect those and direct them to the appropriate people. But Susan, thank you so much for sharing that program. I think one of the things that I love, not just about the program that you presented here to us, but all of the ones that we've been able to hear so far in our Fred Talks presentation, and also our panelist discussion earlier. Certainly we want to make sure that we are being a force for inspiration through this conference, but also breaking down a lot of the barriers, removing the excuses, making it easier for people to engage with art and take part in the therapeutic benefits of art of whatever form it is. It's so cool to see all the ways that the people in our community are working hard to eliminate those barriers and make it more accessible than it has ever been. So really appreciate you bringing that to us today. All right, I am looking at my list here, and I would like to invite Tori Ergang to speak on Give Big Chautauqua for, I think, the final Fred Talk for our session here today. Tori, welcome. We are so glad to have you. Do want to remind you to unmute yourself as well so you don't make the mistake that I made there. The floor is yours. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I feel as though I've been inspired by listening to everyone already today, and I'm just excited that the timing, coincidentally or not, that Give Big CHQ is taking place on the same day that we're all gathering at this Hope and Healing Conference. Give Big CHQ, I'm going to share my screen so that I can just share the really exciting news with all of you. While I was sitting here waiting for my turn to begin, we crossed over $200,000 raised by people who care about Chautauqua County and the causes and the organizations that are near and dear to their hearts. Over 1,375 donors have made contributions, and those contributions are coming in all sizes. And you can see as we scroll down the leaderboard, and there are over 120 organizations that you can consider contributing to. And if you're someone who follows on social media, you can type in and search on Facebook for the hashtag GiveBigCHQ. And if you're like me, you just keep refreshing that, and it brings up for you all of the things that people are sharing and tagging, both not-for-profit organizations, also individuals who are sharing and talking about what they've given to and why it's important to them. This is such an important day, our not-for-profit community, and many of the projects that you've heard about during these Fred Talks rely on fundraising events and activities that over the last 15 months have been nearly impossible. And they've persevered, they've survived, they are thriving, and we need to thank the community for pulling together, as it always does here in Chautauqua County. And we're just excited that we can create an opportunity today for people to once again unite, demonstrate the generosity of their heart and their spirit in a way that only Chautauqua County does. So visit Give Big CHQ and make sure to support organizations like those you've heard from today, and other organizations that are doing really challenging and meaningful work in our community.
All right, thank you so much, Tori. We really appreciate that. I love to witness the Fred Talks and see all of the things that just come together in a really interesting way. We get little snippets from every step of this process, from looking at the importance, looking at the data, which shows the importance for positive supports, the importance of protective factors in our community. We see the organizations and the opportunities that we have in our county to pursue these different methods of artistic expression, and we see people behind the scenes who are raising money to support and keep these organizations going so that they can continue to offer the opportunities that we have. So we'd like to encourage you again to visit Give Big CHQ to support the local art installations that we have here, not just the ones that you have heard from today, but anything that you see, whether it is students putting presentations together, your local theater, jumping in to make some art, to share some art, to share a post and let people know what is going on. It's through our community, through sharing that and making each other aware and supporting each other, that we're able to continue doing this work. So thank you to all of our Fred Talks presenters who came to share today. That is very informative, and I think we definitely met our goal of being able to inspire and encourage people to pursue and support these opportunities. All right, I am double checking my chat box, and I'm double checking my question and answer box to see if we have any questions. I know that there were a couple of questions that had popped in, more specific to additional information and links. And I think that we've been able to reach out on an individual basis to share that information and make sure that those questions have been answered. So If there's anything else that you do have, please continue to send those into our question and answer box, and we will do our best to provide what information we can. But we are looking to proceed with the rest of our presentations today. You will see a poll pop up to evaluate the Fred Talks. We are going to take a brief recess here as we prepare for our second keynote panel. And in doing so, we'll be looking to highlight some more of our local art that was submitted as well for this presentation, for this conference today. Thank you so much. We appreciate your attendance, and we hope that you continue to stick with us for the rest of our program today.